We've got to get him in the fights. We've got to get him undisputed at 47. He can move up. I want to see him fight Terence Crawford. You know, I mean, that's a fight that's been talked about, and Terence will only take that fight if he's big enough. I back Jaron Boots Ennis against anybody. And what a joy to be guiding this man's career.
The long-awaited match between Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis is now underway, as Eddie Hearn has announced the confirmation of the fight in the coming months.
Jaron Ennis is another guy we're talking to. Like, this guy, I think he could be pound for pound number one. He should be an American superstar. We've got a job to do, you know, with Jaron Ennis. I need 12 months to build this kid.
Earlier threatened by Crawford's rematch clause Errol Spence, the match is now free from hindrances as Crawford would be looking to regain his undisputed status. Hearn, however, believes Ennis has what it takes to be undisputed. Let's get right in. Eddie Hearn recently broke the news of the Terence Crawford versus Jaron Ennis about just a few days after he and Matchroom Boxing made another massive move by signing U.S. welterweight prodigy Jaron Boots Ennis to a multi-fight promotional deal. The brilliant, unbeaten IBF welterweight champion is one of the most prized assets in the fight game across the pond, and Hearn and Matchroom announced that they had won the race to sign him on Wednesday.
The biggest signings that certainly we've ever made. Like, the response to that, everybody knows. I had so many people from the industry messaging me last night going, wow, that is one hell of a signing.
But what has even come as a bigger deal and greater achievement is the confirmation of the fight between Terence Crawford and Jaron Ennis just a few days after getting the latter's signature. Truly, this huge move has been an amazing milestone for Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn, among some of their biggest achievements in recent boxing history. Hearn promotes and has promoted many world champions since joining Matchroom Sport, including Anthony Joshua, Canelo Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin, Oleksandr Usyk, Vasyl Lomachenko, Katie Taylor, and many others. Hearn has promoted some large events in recent times, including Carl Froch versus George Groves II in 2014 and Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko in 2017, both of which took place at Wembley Stadium with 80,000 and 90,000 fans in attendance respectively. And the news of the biggest match of Jaron Ennis' career is another huge milestone for Matchroom Boxing that has given fans a huge match to look forward to in the coming months. The exciting 31-0-28 talent from Philadelphia, who has a brilliant career with 31 wins and 31 bouts, including 28 knockout wins, was anointed as IBF King at 147 pounds late last year after Terence Crawford was forced to relinquish the title. And he is now expected to make his first defense under the Matchroom banner this summer, with the date and opponent to be confirmed. It's also great news for UK fight fans, with Ennis set now to appear on streaming service DAZN, along with the likes of Anthony Joshua. But aside from his next match, Eddie Hearn, who is the son of the founder of Matchroom Sport and is also the chairman of Matchroom Sport and Professional Darts Corporation, has also confirmed another match for him in the coming months against Terence Crawford. Eddie Hearn gave his word on the fight in an interview, where the interview did a quick follow-up on him while he walked towards his car.
Get him in the fights. We've got to get him undisputed at 47. He can move up. I want to see him fight Terence Crawford. You know, I mean, that's a fight that's been talked about, and Terence will only take that fight if he's big enough.
Majority of the questions he was asked was about Jaron Ennis, and when he was queried as regards the possibility of a fight against Terence Crawford, he replied, "Sure, we're working on that. That's the big fight." Hearn's final confirmation of the fight came after his interview, where he had earlier mentioned that the fight was in his plans. In an interview with Charlie Parsons for The Stomping Ground, Eddie Hearn has revealed the next step and future plans for Boots. In his interview with Parsons, Hearn spoke with obvious excitement regarding the signing. "This is one of the greatest signings of all time." The chairman of Matchroom Sport then revealed, "I've been trying to sign Boots for 5 years. I watched him years ago and thought, this kid is unbelievable." Hearn continued. When asked what the next steps were for Boots, Hearn said, "He has a mandatory Cody Crowley, which purse bids were called last week. We want to try and make that fight in Philadelphia, June, early July. Get that out of the way, then look for the big fight." He then continued, seeking on the potential of Ennis. Hearn said, "I believe Boots will be undisputed at 147 if we can make it happen, and 54.
In the fights, we've got to get him undisputed at 47. He can move up. I want to see him fight Terence Crawford. You know, I mean, that's a fight that's been talked about, and Terence will only take that fight if it's big enough.
Hearn also surprisingly added, "I think he can beat Terence Crawford. That's the fight I want to make." While it might be deemed an exaggeration from Eddie Hearn to claim Jaron Ennis would defeat Terence Crawford, while they have a very close record, both unbeaten in over 30 matches, Terence Crawford has more reputation as achievements, having fought the best champions and even becoming an undisputed champion in the process. Also, Boots, as Jaron Ennis is fondly called, is a prodigious talent who has shown his class during his career with his brilliant laser-like jab and eye-catching power, which has seen him build a knockout ratio of 90.32%. His jab is arguably one of his best weapons to the body or head and is particularly useful when he doubles it up. It is as a result of these impressive skills and boxing abilities that Matchroom Sport fought their way through to get his signature. Immediately he was signed, Eddie Hearn was asked how he felt about the most recent member of the Matchroom Sports family. Not surprisingly, Hearn was over the moon with his latest superstar signing and believes he can steer Ennis to pound-for-pound greatness in years to come. He gushed, "Wow, what a signing. I've watched this young man for many years, and I always believed he would become a pound-for-pound great, and I have no doubt he is already the greatest fighter in the division. To win the race to sign Jaron is a massive coup for Matchroom Boxing and DAZN. Holding the IBF title in one of boxing's glamour divisions places Jaron front and center for some of the biggest fights out there in the sport, and we plan to deliver them for him." He continued his praises and admiration of the rising star, saying, "Jaron has everything needed to become a household name both in the sport and in the sporting hotbed of his Philadelphia hometown, where we are committed to building him. Fight fans can get excited for his return in the summer as he looks to hunt down the biggest fights that will elevate him to the pound-for-pound list."
Very, very honoured, and 5 years I've been trying to sign this kid. 5 years.
I seen a clip you put out 5 years ago when you were speaking about him.
Him and Devin Haney, I think they're the future of boxing. Said it 5 years ago.
You know,
Jaron Boots' Ennis, on the other hand, was similarly excited to get started under his new promotional banner, explaining, "I'm excited for this partnership with Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, and DAZN. I can't wait to continue making my mark and becoming the undisputed world champion. I've been out of the ring for a year, and I cannot wait to get back in and do what I do best. Entertain the fans and put on clinics. There are blockbuster fights on the horizon for me, and I am ready to deliver them." It must be remembered keenly that Jaron Ennis only became champion after Terence Crawford was stripped of his title as a result of his unwillingness to fight the boxer that was matched with him by the boxing body. It turned out after defeating Errol Spence Jr. to become the undisputed champion, Terence Crawford lost one of his belts as a result of the clause in his contract with Errol Spence Jr. That gave the loser of the match the right to demand a rematch. Jaron Ennis' ascension to the throne was confirmed after the IBF ceased recognition of Crawford's reign due to his inability to satisfy a mandatory title defense obligation. The unbeaten three-division champ inherited interim International Boxing Federation titleist Jaron Boots Ennis as an overdue title defense, but could not comply with the sanctioning body's rules on negotiations due to his contractually bound rematch clause with Errol Spence Jr., whom he dethroned earlier in the summer of 2023. On August 25, 2023, the International Boxing Federation sent a letter to TBC Promotions directing Terence Crawford to begin negotiations with interim champion Jaron Ennis. Negotiations were to be concluded by September 24th. A spokesperson informed a renowned news source. On September 22nd, almost a month later, the International Boxing Federation received an email from Harrison Whitman representing Crawford, indicating that the agreement for the Spence vs. Crawford bout contains an immediate rematch provision which Errol Spence has exercised. As such, Terence Crawford is unable to engage in negotiations with Jaron Ennis. Crawford, who has 40 wins in 40 bouts, including 31 knockout victories, fully unified the welterweight division when he stopped Spence in the 9th round to win the World Boxing Council, World Boxing Association, and International Boxing Federation titles atop their July 29th Showtime pay-per-view event from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. The switch hitter from Omaha, Nebraska, entered the fight as the reigning World Boxing Organization titleist, which he won in June 2018 and successfully defended for the 7th time. The bout came with a contractual clause which allowed for the losing fighter to enforce a rematch. Spence, who's had 29 career bouts with 28 wins and 1 loss, including 22 knockout victories, exercised that right shortly after the IBF ordered Crawford to next face Philadelphia's Jaron Ennis. Crawford's team went nearly the full length of the 30-day negotiation period before informing the International Boxing Federation of its commitment to a second fight with Spence. Sanctioning bodies generally do not honor rematch clauses as a justifiable exception for mandatory title fights.
Boots is the mandatory. He's calling you out now.
Right now in my career, a lot of people like boost this, boost that, boost this. Fighting Boots is a lose-lose situation. I win, they're gonna say, oh, well, he was young.
International Boxing Federation Rule 3.B, in fact, prohibits the practice. No contract for a championship contest shall contain any clause or any provision whatsoever guaranteeing or in any way assuring or promising either contestant a return championship contest where such clause or provision interferes with the mandatory defense of a title. Most big fights tend to violate that rule, Crawford-Spence falling right into that category. It was a risk that Crawford was willing to take to secure a career-defining victory and a life-changing, healthy 8-figure payday to go along with it. Based on the foregoing, the IBF has withdrawn recognition of Terence Crawford as the IBF welterweight world champion, confirmed the IBF. Ennis claimed the interim IBF title in a 12-round unanimous decision victory over Karen Chukadzian on January 7th in Washington, D.C. The IBF agreed to sanction the fight under such terms, given that Ennis, as the mandatory challenger at the time, did not have a path to immediately challenge for the title. Spence was ordered at the time to next face WBC mandatory challenger Keith Thurman. The sanctioning bodies are bound to a rotational system for unified titleists, which left the WBA and IBF in waiting. The WBA already recognized Imantas Stanionis as its secondary regular title holder and ordered his own mandatory title defense. Ennis was permitted to challenge for the interim IBF title, which he since defended in a 9th-round knockout of Royman Villa atop a July 9th Showtime Championship boxing telecast from Atlantic City. The fight came with the official ruling that he would next challenge the Crawford-Spence winner, at least from the IBF's viewpoint. There was prior bickering about the weight and terms for such a fight. Spence noted after his first career defeat that he planned to move up in weight, to which Crawford was initially amenable immediately after their fight. However, Crawford, who reserves the right to determine the weight per their contractual agreement, has since stated a willingness to fight at welterweight. Whatever the case, he is now on the hook to either proceed with that fight or resume his welterweight championship reign, which now comes with one less title in tow. Ennis will have to make a mandatory defense at some point whenever the IBF is able to determine such a challenger. The unbeaten rising star will be permitted a voluntary defense in the meantime. In an interview, Crawford gave his own reaction to what transpired and how he felt about his title loss and the situations around it. Shockingly, he claimed he was unbothered. Crawford was asked on what he had to say regarding getting stripped by the International Boxing Federation, and he said, "I'm not mad at him. I got what I needed, and that was undisputed, and the rest is history. I don't care about any of that." When asked if he was frustrated about getting stripped, he replied claiming he wasn't, saying, "Not at all. Like I said, I came into that fight looking to become undisputed. I became undisputed, so there's nothing there for me to accomplish at that point in time. I did what I said I was going to do. I came, I saw, I conquered, and it's on to the next." He was also asked about how he felt about being stripped so quickly after winning the belt, when Spence was seemingly afforded allowances. It is what it is. They pick and choose who they want to grant certain things to, and if they were going to do something like that, I feel like they should have stripped Spence prior to the fight, given that they knew it was a 2-fight deal going into the fight. So who knows? They knew I couldn't just get out of my contract with Spence to fight Boots, so it is what it is. He was finally asked what he had to say about Boots' championship status, and if it was a shame for Boots not to be able to win the full title in the ring. He said, "Yeah, I know that's not ideal, how he wanted to win it. I know he's disappointed that he couldn't win it from a champion and whatnot. It's disappointing for him, but if I was him, I would just tell them, I want to fight for it. I'd rather fight the number 3 guy if I couldn't get the other guy. Don't send me a belt in the mail." But it just seems like everybody is cool with being email champions now and whatnot, just to be called world champion. He got 3 belts, he got like 2 interim belts, and now they're going to send him another belt. So he'll have 3 of the same belts, and it's like, come on man, you're walking around with 3 of the same belts. However, in a sad turn of events for Terence Crawford, he lost his belt as a result of the rematch clause with Errol Spence Jr. The rematch was eventually canceled, as it was announced early this year that Terence Crawford will not be fighting Errol Spence Jr. for a second time following injury and eye surgery revelations regarding his opponent. Bud, as Terence Crawford is fondly called, announced he's done with Spence after Errol the Truth. Spence revealed he went under the knife for cataracts. In his statement, Terence Crawford said, "I heard it all now, Errol Spence. It's okay though, because all in all, I'm glad it's over and done with. I wish you well, my brother." While Spence blamed his poor performance against Crawford last July on the fact he got hit with so many hooks and jabs in the fight, Crawford has since been bombarded with complaints over Spence fighting with a severe ailment. Some fans believe the contest was never a fair fight as Crawford battered Spence. However, before the pay-per-view, Spence was seen as a solid 50-50 competitor in the bout. Nonetheless, once the first bell rang, many questioned what was wrong with Spence. Looking like a shell of himself, Spence was taken apart and dispatched in 9 rounds, 7 months after a second car accident almost derailed the headliner. A battle with Manny Pacquiao was previously called off in 2021 due to Spence almost being killed in another horror smash. This time, the fight went ahead despite Spence's admission that he couldn't see 100% clearly. Post-surgery recovery was set to be at least 6 weeks for Spence, who invoked a rematch clause in the weeks after his first defeat. As his statement suggested, Crawford seemed to have the option to walk away. The time frame may be the issue, as Crawford fended off further allegations of him not being active enough. The 2-weight undisputed champion believed that he deserved Fighter of the Year for his win over Spence. However, most fans and media saw Naoya Inoue's achievements in 2 victories as greater than Crawford's solitary effort. The 2023 win has since been seen as something of a sham due to the troubles with Spence's eye going into the fight. Crawford's best career win had the shine firmly taken off it amid claims of a mismatch. If Spence had been at the top of his game and injury-free, the consensus is that Crawford would not have dealt with him like he did in Las Vegas. Crawford will no longer get the chance to prove it was no walkover, and this was because Spence was out of the running as his next opponent. The likeness is that Crawford will move up to 154 pounds for a more significant challenge. Should Crawford move to a higher weight class, the remainder of his welterweight belts will now go up in the air.
What we know?
I know everything.
I don't know nothing. I'm trying to find out what I know. Enlighten me.
What you mean enlighten me? You for Devanese and you could for me.
You jumped up out of my sanction body to go fight in the IBF. So.
However, once and only if Spence is fully recovered, a future reignition of the second fight cannot be ruled out. However, with the feasibility of a match against Jaron "Boots" Ennis, it's likely that Terence Crawford would stay longer in the weight class to contest in a fight that may see him grab his undisputed world championship status once more. On the other hand, though Jaron "Boots" Ennis has a new promoter, he remains stuck for now with the same mandatory challenger. The Ring has confirmed that the International Boxing Federation has put its mandatory welterweight title fight back into play. Philadelphia's Ennis is still on the hook to defend versus Cody Crowley, subject to the results of a rescheduled April 23rd purse bid hearing. Neither side can entertain another fight during the ordered period per IBF Rule 9C. It creates a conflict for Canada's Crowley, ranked number 4 at 147, who is also tied to a WBC title eliminator versus Souleymane Sissoko. All-Star Boxing, Sissoko's local promoter in France, won an April 9th purse bid for the rights to the fight, and 1 day later, Matchroom Boxing announced its signing of Ennis, the Ring's No. 2 welterweight. No date was attached to their first fight together, though targeted for an unspecified July date. Ennis Crowley was originally ordered on January 31st. The two sides failed to reach terms by March 1st, which triggered a March 19th purse bid hearing. A 1-week delay was requested by TGB Promotions. The matter was then canceled altogether when the IBF was informed that both sides reached an agreement. Ennis was represented in talks by his father and head trainer Derek Buzzy Ennis, while their side also filed a lawsuit to separate from Now Boxing Promotions. They have since reached a settlement, which left Ennis as a free agent before he signed with Matchroom, who will undoubtedly participate in the bid. TGB Promotions, the primary promoter for Premier Boxing Champions events, was the point of contact in negotiations for Canada's Crowley. Per IBF Rule 9C, Ennis and Crowley are now required to honor the ordered purse bid hearing to avoid disciplinary action handed down by the sanctioning body. Any fighter who abandons the purse bid process or does not honor the outcome will receive a demotion in the rankings plus a 6-month probation period where they cannot participate in an IBF-sanctioned fight. Interestingly, Crowley found himself in position to challenge for this title after he previously violated those very terms. He is once again pressed with a decision to make between this fight and the WBC-ordered eliminator versus Sissoko. However, with the latest announcement from Eddie Hearn, there's a guarantee that the Terence Crawford versus Jaron Ennis match would be fixed once an agreement is reached with Crowley. And that's all for now. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.